Hello, beautiful people. Here I am with a special cosmic climate on Pluto retrograde in Aquarius and also in Capricorn. I am here to share my perspective, my insights that I see for this retrograde cycle. This is a very important retrograde cycle, and I feel that this is going to hit a little bit differently for a lot of us, more deeply. And it also, I feel, is bringing this energy of possibly grief, of nostalgia, and also just a bit of uncertainty, a bit, excuse me, of vulnerability with this particular retrograde cycle. So, two things that are in my space at this moment. The first thing is that before I started to record, as I had everything set up, I was sitting here and I wanted to ground myself, which meant that I sat in silence for a little bit. And then I also recited Tara's mantra and 108 times, walking myself through the whole mala. And as I was doing this, my stillness was essentially disrupted by police sirens and maybe an ambulance. I'm not quite sure, but definitely, yeah, I feel that it was actually an ambulance, but possibly police as well. And it brought me out of my space of that momentary serenity, aside from, toddler sounds in the background. And it really felt profound to, I was going to say the read that I have on this Pluto retrograde cycle. And I felt this sadness because I feel personally, and I'm sure a lot of you are feeling this, is that with this shift, with this, elevation or soul evolution that we're experiencing, and you're really going to experience this over the next couple months while Pluto is retrograde, it's like we're leaving people behind, right? And the people that watch this video, the people that are really doing the work and really just have the best intentions, we feel sad. Maybe you feel shameful. Maybe you feel some aspect of disappointment because it feels that, we're leaving people behind who just aren't understanding, who aren't learning the lessons, and they're caught up on this this cycle, this karmic loop, and it's not clicking. And at some point, it's like we can't continue to fight our battles and their battles. And the best thing we can do is heal ourselves and be an example of light, of love, and of our own personal power. And in that space, we can connect and touch people on an individual basis, or connect in light, or not necessarily. I mean, maybe it is enlighten, but just inspire them and maybe bring them some sense of peace or joy or whatever it is that they need in that moment. That is the best way, in my opinion and experience, to really help, to be of service. And so when I heard the police sirens, I was just feeling like I wanted to cry. And I felt sad that people are suffering and struggling and just probably have no hope, right? And it's all over the world. And so that grounded me, and it connected me to, I feel the relevance of that within what I'm going to share here. The second thing that that came up is that I have been having the past couple weeks, really post the full moon, Scorpio full moon. So I want to say I'm recording this May 12th, 2024, 7:49 p.m. I probably started at like 7:45. Let's say 7:44. And that's Eastern time. And I mentioned doing this special cosmic climate when Pluto stationed retrograde that week. And, life has happened. And as I was just going to say, is since that Scorpio full moon that we just had a few weeks ago, that moon energy, I was manic. I was peaked. I felt really good. And like the best thing happened to me, which was receiving the legal papers of my name as Urania Harp. I completely disassociated myself, or I released Portia Bazzani, which was my birth name and marital last name, which I'm divorced. My full birth name is Portia Suggs. So I released both of those, and I am integrated with Urania Harp, or I transformed, or I don't know, so many words. It's like I can't even put it into words. But the sense of empowerment that I had, for one, the last name is something that my grandmother's marital or maiden last name is Harper. So therefore my great grandmother's marital name was Harper. I like that. And I was considering taking that name, but then I decided, that's still connected to that patriarchal bloodline, which I heard really good things about my great grandfather. He literally built my great grandmother a house. So like as a proposal of marriage. And this was back in, I don't know, 1930s, something like that. Who knows? 1930s, maybe 1940s. And so, but I wanted to pay homage to my grandmother and great grandmother, but I wanted to also just start anew. And I'll explain the story with Urania in a different video. So nonetheless, the fact that I got those papers the day of, like they were signed over to me and everything, that was a rebirth. That was the beginning. And shortly after that, I then felt so exhausted. I've been feeling exhausted. I've been feeling the process of the rebirth, and it's been a lot happening, like for the good. And I just, at this point of recording this, I don't know. I'm like, who am I right now? And I feel that I know that everything happens in divine timing. And so as I'm showing up to have this conversation or to present my perspective here on Pluto retrograde, in my own personal astrology, if you're familiar with zodiacal releasing, which I refer to as the unconscious cosmic clock, it is an ancient Hellenistic timing technique that breaks your life up into segments of time, or you can consider it, if your life is a story, this unconscious cosmic clock, it showcases the book. It's the book of your life, and it's broken down into chapters, into pages, into paragraphs, into sentences. And this corresponds to, time periods within your life. And it gets really specific down to the actual day of the year. And so where I'm at right now within this unconscious cosmic clock, I just started a new level, which is a level 3. I look at this as the section on a page. This is the very last section on this page before the page turns. And this section on this page began today as I'm recording this. I didn't know until a few hours ago, and I looked this up because I'm like, I feel different. I feel like, who am I? And just the way I've been observing the world around me, it just feels different. and I feel like I don't care about what people think. I feel that I'm an observer and I don't really resonate with where I am right now. And it's not a bad thing. I don't have any judgment about it. It's just like I don't, it's not calibrating. And so I feel that, you know, a move or something, something's gonna shift physically and I'm going to be somewhere else. But that's a whole nother conversation. So this has been coming up for a couple days. And I look at my zodiacal releasing and I was like, oh my gosh, I just entered this last section on this page, which is a level 3. This level 3 is an Aquarius, which, if you know about annual perfection, this is my the sign that's perfected for the year is Aquarius, which is my 4th house, which is another thing. But anyways, what's even more profound is that this timing is even more significant because it is marked as a loosing of the bond. And this loosing of the bond, essentially, in this timing technique, is where you're revisiting something within your life and you are releasing there is a loosening of the bond. So you're releasing nonetheless, and you're releasing, say, karmic ties, you're releasing resistance, belief systems, perspectives. This is something that, you know, again, this is an ancient Hellenistic timing technique, and there's not a lot of research and study on this in like practice and experience, at least from what we know. And so those of us studying this timing technique, we're actually learning as we go. And so I can't really say what this means, right? I just witness it with my clients and I witness it in my own life. But this seems really profound that, one, I'm having this conversation that I'm going to talk about with Pluto retrograde as far as throwing off karma and clearing soul contracts. And it just so happens that where I am at this point is a section on the very last page of this particular part of the book of my life that is literally pointing to clearing karma, loosening the bond, right? Letting go, releasing. And it's in Aquarius, which in my birth chart, Aquarius corresponds to family, private life, living situation, ancestral connections, you know, home. And so I'm like, wow, you really can't make this up. So with all of that said, it is divine timing. If things feel like it's moving slow, if you're feeling unmotivated and you're going to have to like postpone or wait or whatever, for whatever reason, you feel the desire to not do the thing. Know that when the time is right, you will show up, you will connect with so-and-so, you will receive. So that's where I'm at with this. All right. So thank you very much for listening to that. Now for Pluto retrograde, I am really looking forward to this Pluto retrograde. We're already in Pluto retrograde. Pluto retrograde began on May 2nd. As I said, it's May 12th. So that was a little over a week ago when Pluto stationed retrograde, meaning that it began its retrograde cycle at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And so whenever a planet stations either retrograde or direct, essentially for that small moment in time, that given amount of time, and with these, you know, outer planets, or you can consider them as these like generational planets, right? Pluto being the slowest in this case, as far as orbital period, it holds its power when it's in that moment of transition of either going backwards, you know, from our perspective, going forwards, in that stationary moment, and especially at that degree, it really generates the most power, and its intention is greatly expressed. And so with Pluto, you know, we are, I mean, like I said, the retrograde cycle began 10 days ago. And so we're still essentially in that stationary period. Now, Pluto is slowly moving backwards from our perspective and energetically. And at the same time, it's still in that, at that 2-degree point. Now, let me just double check as I'm saying this. So, let me just check here. Let's see, where are you, Pluto? Yeah, it's still at 2 degrees of Aquarius, right? And so really pay attention to what's coming up right now. Okay. So Pluto's retrograde cycle, as I said, began May 2nd, 2024, and it will end October 11th, 2024. At its ending period, right? On October 11th, Pluto will actually be at 29 degrees of Capricorn when it ends its retrograde cycle. And so there's still like a little bit of Capricorn stuff we are still clearing out and moving through. And so the focus for this Pluto retrograde cycle is essentially we're looking at Aquarius and Capricorn. And what I love of the within the Hellenistic perspective or traditional astrology is that I love using the 7 traditional planets, which the sun and the moon in this case are considered to be a planet. I love utilizing them or perceiving them as the rulers or the guardians or the guides of the signs, right? I love that symmetry. I love that balance. And it makes sense if you're utilizing Hellenistic techniques, say annual perfection, or in this case of zodiacal releasing, which I mentioned, it makes more sense to use the faster moving planets, and Saturn's essentially the slowest, and it tends to stay in the sign for 2 to 3 years. So that's what I mean. As opposed to what the moon being 2 to 3 days in a sign, right? And so when it comes to timing, it makes more sense to pay attention to these 7 traditional planets. And that is my perspective, right? Because if we move out to Uranus, that Uranus stays in a sign for 7 years. And Uranus actually kind of plays somewhat of a role in this. And so, it's all connected. It's all working together. So I invite you to look at the 7 traditional planets, in this perspective, in this case, and as far as like rulership. And I also invite you, to experiment and look at the generational planets as well. But for this particular perspective that I'm sharing on Pluto retrograde, I'm going to be using Saturn as the planetary ruler of Aquarius, right? So Saturn rules both Capricorn and Aquarius. And I love this symmetry and this evolution that Saturn has, or these signs have, or in this case, what Pluto is presenting, moving from the archetype of Capricorn to the archetype of Aquarius. So when we consider I just want to show how Aquarius and Capricorn are similar, and how the rulership of Saturn makes sense for Aquarius, because I feel a lot of us, those of us who practice astrology, study, or are astrology enthusiasts, we can understand Saturn's rulership of Capricorn. But with Aquarius, it's like Uranus there's an affinity there. There is similarities. But I want to share with how Saturn can be considered the planetary ruler of Aquarius as well. So Saturn, just to keep it basic and simple, Saturn is the planet that governs time, that governs lessons, that being, karmic lessons and cycles of time and space. It also governs the maturation process or cycle. So how we mature, how we evolve. And it's very connected to the physical plane, right? It's very connected to structures and boundaries. And within the structures and the boundaries and the lessons, there's a strong connection to divine law and order, right? And this is all really centered around Earth. Like when I think about Saturn, I do think about, like I said, the cosmic laws, divine law. And I feel that Saturn specifically is the guardian of the physical realm, right? And in this case, it's going to be very focused on Earth, right? Earth consciousness, or even and this is getting into the Aquarius, being able to draw down that cosmic wisdom, that sacred wisdom or the cosmic law through the consciousness, through the channeling, and bring that into a physical manifestation, into some sort of structure and form, which can bring us back to the Capricorn quality. So with this understanding, or just this basic breakdown of, or description of Saturn and what Saturn rules or governs, when we think about Capricorn's energy, again, it's like the structures, the boundaries. It is the tradition. Its energy is very, like, it's very focused on the culture, it's very exclusive, right? And just considering its opposite sign of Cancer and Capricorn really hold strong similarities, where Cancer is also very protective and focused on the culture and the family, and it's very focused into the home, and you could say the immediate family, or just, yeah, I feel like the more so the immediate family. And we think about the moon as the ruler of Cancer, and there's that element of, there is cycles, there is an element of lessons or karmic energy. Both Saturn and the moon hold their record keepers, records of time and cycles. And with the moon, it's definitely a connection of ancestral or familial records, right? And with Saturn, it's that, but it's also lifetimes, your earthly lifetimes, the records of that, right? And I'm going to compare, well, I might as well just do that now, bringing Pluto into the mix. Pluto, it holds the records, or is the guardian, the keeper of, like, all lifetimes, whether it's, beyond Earth, essentially, right? So if you can really entertain that concept, that thought of having lifetimes on other planets, in other dimensions, Pluto holds the information and the intelligence of those sacred records. So coming back to Saturn, and when we think about the concept of Capricorn can be considered that outward or outer world expression or experience of the container, of the structures and the boundaries. So it's this really exclusive container that is very focused on the culture, on the boundaries of the land, on the boundaries of the tradition, or the, you can even say bloodline in a sense, right? And so then when you consider Aquarius, and as we evolve through the nature of the archetypes of the zodiac, Aquarius also, if you know Aquarians, they are very structured. They are very concerned or very invested in the nature of humanity, the nature of community, but it's a little bit different, right? They have, through the active Saturn and that process of maturation, they have broken through the traditions, right? Because this is what continues to help us evolve. This is what helps us to, that vulnerability of breaking through is what allows us to feel a bit more connected, even in our differences. And that's a big thing with Aquarius. And so for those of you who don't know, my sun sign is at 0 degrees Aquarius. My moon is at 20 degrees of Capricorn, or 19. I think it's 20 degrees of Capricorn. Then I have a Scorpio rising. And so I get Aquarius, and I definitely get Capricorn very well, because I have a lot of Capricorn. And so Aquarius, like, people don't really get Aquarius. And that's one of the biggest things, is that Aquarius, they do have a strong passion and desire for structure, for organization, for building, and they're very progressive. They are very futuristic. They they're humanitarians. They are the humanitarians. And with that, they are also visionaries, right? With Aquarius, it's like Aquarius is at the point where you realize that you can't really change anybody. Yes, you can create these restrictions, these boundaries, these rules, these laws, but it's going to be a little bit different for every person because of karmic patterns, the way we mature, just when it comes to physical natures, the way our mind works, the way, just again, that maturation, that karmic line, the tradition, the bloodline, even, or what I mean, even through the bloodlines, right? The DNA, even that is unique to everyone. And so Aquarius is concerned or, inspired by the concept to coexist in our differences, right? So we move from exclusivity to inclusivity, right? And at the same time, Aquarians can be very detached because it's like, okay, I'm going to fly my freak flag. Let's coexist together, but let me do my own thing, right? There's still that Saturn quality that comes in where there's this aspect of separation, because if from my perspective, I do feel my perspective, I'm not saying I'm right, but I do feel that we all came from a source, right? That being light, in the most simplified way to explain that, right? Light and love, so to speak. And we have separated in order to learn about emotions, learn about, specifically on earth, learn about the physical nature of the world and to how to interact with that physicality, how to manifest, how to live life, seemingly disconnected from our divine energy, even though we're not, and also feeling that separation from one another, right? So there's something here to be learned from separation while also being together, right? Having our own experiences, because when you have people in your life that think about soul family or people that you've known for years, and you have really you've seen each other go through some crazy shit, and like you've probably been through some crazy shit together. And that feeling of going through the shit separately, but then also together, but then separate. And then when you come back together after you've been through so much, that just deepens the union. That makes everything so much more profoundly felt, so much more the understanding, the compassion, the grace. That is a bit of, from my perspective, my understanding and read on things, that is a part of the reasoning possibly for separating and learning and then coming back together and sharing those experiences. Some experiences we have together, some experiences we witness for one another, some experiences we have solo, and we come back together, and that is profoundly felt. And so Aquarius is taking us to the point of the journey in which we can be our own individuals. We can fly our freak flag. We can be in our spiritual gifts. We can be of service. We can coexist within our differences and also, connect with the divine, and to really just, there's just a lot of optimism. So if you all are familiar, perfect example of Aquarius, 1 second, is one perfect example of Aquarius is the star card in tarot, like the hope, the connection to divine intelligence, to divine consciousness, right? Aquarians they're literally an open channel. When I see especially the moon in Aquarius, I see Aquarius ruling the 8th house. And this is like, in natal astrology, Mercury in Aquarius, I'm like, wow, just a natural channel. channel of the divine energies coming through. Aquarius ruling the ninth house, just little signatures like this, right? And so this is what we are experiencing, this transition, this evolution from Capricorn to Aquarius. And with Pluto, as I mentioned, Pluto is the keeper of the soul records beyond the earthly lifetimes. And so with Pluto, it is considered from some astrology perspectives to be literally the soul, your soul within the chart, or your generation. You know, when you consider the sign that Pluto is in, that gives you an understanding of the generation that you're in, the collective group that you've incarnated with, right? And you know, there's some level of like, okay, we're soul family, but I have soul family from, you know, Pluto and Virgo, Pluto, maybe Pluto and Leo for sure. So you can have soul family and of course soul contracts with people of other Pluto generations, but really looking at your Pluto, your natal Pluto placement, and that'll give you an idea of that collective energy of the archetype that you are doing your soul's work through. And also there's an element of karmic you know, agreements and things of that nature. Karmic lessons and cycles are also imprinted within that natal Pluto placement. Pluto is also from spiritual practice, from dream work, it is the unconscious or the subconscious, a representation of the subconscious or the access point to that. So whenever you have transits hitting your Pluto placement, whenever you have just transit, or I guess that's what I'm looking for. That will really open that's a good time to set an intention to access your unconscious or your subconscious, right? To access that hidden, those records of intelligence essentially. And so when Pluto when these transits interact with Pluto, these other planets, there is hidden energy that is revealed. So fun fact, as I mentioned, that information about the experience about the receiving my papers on the day of the Scorpio full moon, which I'm still processing. If I was to set a natal chart for Urania heart, it would be that day. And I'm like, damn, I would have a Scorpio moon. That's intense. I'm like, do I want to claim that? I probably should. Nonetheless, the Scorpio full moon that was happening that day was literally exact to my natal Scorpio placement of 4 degrees Scorpio, right? Or my natal Pluto placement, which is 4 degrees Scorpio. And the full moon was at 4 degrees of Scorpio. So I was just, I was in it. Can't make it up, right? And that was a reveal. And I am moving through the transformation and what has been opened up from that moment. So really pay attention to the transits that come across your natal Pluto placement. And you can do that every month with the moon, because the moon and Pluto have an interesting connection, as they are both connected to the subconscious, right? To dreams, to hidden energies and intuition, and, you know, just things that are somewhat behind the veil a bit, right? And so that's a good one to do every month, you know, see when the moon crosses or connects with your natal Pluto placement, and keep records of what comes up for you. And maybe there's some other transits that happen that, you know, may add to that interaction, that connection, or whatever is being revealed to you at that time. And also note the moon phase and how that changes. And so it's a beautiful experience to really have. I just love the record keeping, right, of all the things, and to see the patterns and the way things evolve and open up, like pretty much like a flower is how I look at it. So where are we now? So yes, paying attention to Pluto, right? Pluto being that, right? Okay, so Pluto is also bringing forth the soul evolution, right? So we're going from Capricorn to Aquarius. And so this is the point in which, being that Pluto's going to move back into Capricorn one more time, this is us really being able to have another opportunity to clear some shit up, right? To clear the soul contracts, to release some karma, to tie up a lesson, to, profess that you have learned whatever keeps like knocking you over the head. This is the opportunity to really clean house with that. So with Pluto retrograde in general, it's the opportunity to heal karma and to, heal these soul contracts, clear the soul contracts at an accelerated rate. So we can, we're healing our karma all the time. We are satisfying these soul contracts, these life lessons all the time. And when Pluto is retrograde, this is an accelerated opportunity to do so, because it's like we're backtracking and reflecting, and things are coming up for review and refinement and clearing. And so we're just in a beautiful opportunity to do this. Okay, so Pluto and Aquarius, Pluto energy moving so fast. Like all of a sudden I'm awake. Before I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Like what's happening? All right. So Pluto and Capricorn. So here's a little celestial timekeeping for you. And this will hopefully allow you to look back and see what has happened in this, vast amount of time in Pluto's transit, and see, maybe think about where you were at the beginning and now where you are, and have there been lessons that you feel you've learned? Are there some things from, when the transit began of Pluto and Capricorn that, you're still clearing, and you're like, oh, I forgot about this thing, and you see how it's coming up? Maybe I hope that this will provide an aha moment for you. So we'll go through this. So Pluto entered Capricorn in January of 2008, January 25th of 2008. And so as I'm sitting here and I was making my notes, what really came to mind for Pluto and Capricorn is that we are clearing soul contracts overall, because as I mentioned with Capricorn, and in both Capricorn and Aquarius, there's this connection to the karmic line, to family, to ancestral lines, and that kind of karmic energy. So I'm thinking the really heavy stuff too, and so with Pluto and Capricorn, we are clearing that, right? We're flushing through those energetic cords and those karmic loops, the cycles that we've been repeating again, because with Saturn, it is about the cycles and, the karmic cycles. We're closing that. Well, you know what? I always think about closing the loops, right? But that's the loop. What I thought about as I was making my notes, oh no, we're cutting those. We're cutting those loops, or something's happening where it's just opening up, and it's like, okay, off we go. It's been released, or maybe it's dissolved, right? Who knows? Whatever feels good to you, that is what's happening, right? There's a release, there's a loosening of the bond, and lessons are being learned. And the last time so let me just say, Pluto and Capricorn, January 25th, 2008, till essentially March 23rd, 2020 or 2023 was when Pluto first moved into Aquarius, right? So we'll say that that's the ending pretty much. And when we've been backtracking, that is essentially us clearing and, cleaning up things, right? So basically, the time frame for Pluto and Capricorn is January 25th of 2008 to March 23rd of 2023. That is your reflection period. And the next time Pluto will be in Capricorn is the year 2022-54. Okay, so now Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius, what I'm gathering, and it's going to unfold and reveal itself. There's going to be many layers peeled back, and we're going to go deeper and deeper. So this is just what I'm getting a sense of right now. But it is us moving beyond the physical, moving beyond what is seen right here, right? Allowing ourselves to open up, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable in the sense of trusting what it is that we don't see, trusting that we can create, we can receive the things that we desire without it being in the physical yet. And this is on a deep, deep level in the sense of humanity coexisting peacefully, having clean air, clean food, clean water, feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling abundant, right? And this is where this Taurus energy is going to come into as we go deeper into the retrograde cycle, right? But be living beyond the physical, creating beyond the physical. So this is when we really start to utilize that law of attraction, right? Like coming back to the universal laws, the spiritual laws, right? This is coming to that Aquarian mind of really opening up that expanded consciousness and collecting to cosmic energy, the cosmic divine, and living within purpose, right? There is a very optimistic, I was going to say opportunist, that's not what I'm going for, optimistic, but very aspiring energy of Aquarius, right? I know for me, that was, I identified, well, no, I would say I identified with Capricorn for a lot of my early years because I didn't know I was an Aquarius until I got my birth chart because my birthday is January 20th. So you see a lot in magazines that, oh, you're a Capricorn. Well, when I got my birth chart, I realized I was an Aquarius. And that's when I really started getting interested in astrology. I was like, whoa, what? I'm an Aquarius. And I really resonated with that, right? And I have been a bit of a rebel. Even now at age 39, my mother is like, when are you going to get a real job? And that's been a part of, unfortunately, well, I don't know, everything's a lesson and a reason, right? But that's been a part of my story of like not following status quo at all with whatever I do. Even if I go to college, I go to college at age like 26 and graduate, you know, at age 30 or whatever for astronomy and physics. And then I come to astrology and people are like, but you have a bachelor's in astronomy and physics. So what? How did that happen? Like people that aren't in this realm. But anyways, so with Aquarius, it's the releasing the box. There is no box, right? It is expansion. It is openness, right? We're opening our minds to the sky. We're opening our hearts to the sky. We're coming into alignment with divine cosmic energy and living within purpose and really connecting to those clairvoyant abilities and the visionary qualities in order to, moving forward, Pluto and Pisces, reconnect to the divine, come back together in union in a deeper way because we've been through this really intense cycle together and we learn compassion. We learn that we can coexist. We learn from one another and we learn that we are really a lot alike, right? And so that is what I'm sensing with Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto in Aquarius cycle began March 23rd of 2023. And the cycle will end March 8, 2043, right? So that's 20 years. And the next time Pluto will be in Aquarius will be in 2269. So that's a really long time, right? So we got to make this count. And just to go backwards in time, the last time Pluto was in Capricorn was 1762. And then Pluto was in Aquarius 1778. And Pluto and Aquarius brought forth the American Revolutionary War. So I hate when I look back at world events, you know, from back in the past, because they always point out the wars, and I'm just like, was there not anything else going on? And then I think about humanity, and I'm like, and I think, no, that sounds about right. That's what we would keep as our like sacred, profound world event, you know, which I mean, fine, whatever. Okay, so we are 2/3 of the way finished with this, with what I want to share here. Now I'm going to really focus in on Pluto retrograde and just kind of what the energies are that are standing out to me, maybe what you can expect. Maybe, you know, you might want to jot some of these dates down to be able to reflect on or look ahead to as we move through the energy. And so Pluto retrograde began, as I mentioned, May 2nd of 2024 at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And so when I'm looking at retrograde cycles, I like to look at the station points. So station retrograde, when the retrograde begins, and then station direct, when the retrograde cycle ends. And then the third part of the journey or of the cycle that I like to look at is the peak, the halfway point of the cycle. And so with Pluto, this is the opposition of Pluto and the moon. Okay. And so that point will be, the sun will be, or Pluto will still be in Aquarius, 0 degrees Aquarius. So that's kind of an important part. So basically, I'm going to talk about the beginning of Pluto retrograde, the peak, and the end of Pluto retrograde. And we'll kind of bring that together, and that'll give us a sense of the dynamic of this retrograde cycle. All right, so Pluto retrograde is going to begin May 2nd. Let's say this one more time, at 2 degrees. So I'm already seeing that too. I'm like, 2 and 2, right? That energy of balance, of harmony, of alignment, of union. And if I really want to play with the numbers, Pluto retrograde in September 1st, right? And so, or not Pluto retrograde, Pluto retrograde in Aquarius goes from May 2nd to September 1st. And then September 1st, at some point in that day, Pluto will move back, retrograde back into Capricorn. So it's right before the second day. So anyways, I just like playing with that, with the numbers. And so 222 is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing it as, okay, September 2nd is the first full day that Pluto is going to be in Capricorn, right? So that's interesting. Nonetheless, I do feel, and I have been experiencing this already, even before May 2nd. So, you know, with these things, it's not necessarily it doesn't have to necessarily be on the day of. You can start feeling this, you know, a couple weeks before, being that we're dealing with Pluto and it's very slow. And so Pluto was in its, say, shadow period for some time when it hit that 2nd degree of Aquarius. And so with this, I'm thinking maybe I should, you know, share the chart here. So I'm going to actually share the chart. I don't usually do this, but I'm feeling, like I said, I'm feeling different. So let's see, Pluto turns retrograde. I am, okay, going to share my screen here. So bear with me, friends. Feel like I'm gonna have to edit this. I should edit the video so you guys don't have to sit around while I do this. All right, so I am pretty sure I know you guys can see this. I want to make it bigger, but I don't know if I can make it full screen. Nonetheless, here we are. Pluto turns retro at 2 degrees of Aquarius, May 2nd, 2024. This is based in Washington, D.C., this particular chart as far as location, because that's where I was born, right? Okay, so here we are, Pluto, 2 degrees. This is its stationary point. And this is when it begins its retrograde cycle. So I personally like to look at what is here, what's coexisting with Pluto at this time, what's in the same house, the same place, the same realm as Pluto, and it's the moon. And you're going to see this theme pretty much carried throughout Pluto's retrograde cycle. And so also the moon phase here is the moon is in a waning half moon or last quarter phase. And so this is a bit of conflict in consciousness. And so as Pluto was preparing or really holding that power at 2 degrees, the moon was essentially, you can either say she was releasing information. I feel that being this is a waning moon, I definitely feel that she was releasing some sort of intelligence, some sort of energy that will be very useful or something that will possibly be in review during Pluto's retrograde cycle. And so whatever occurred, say around May 2nd, especially while the moon was in Aquarius, it possibly would have brought forth some sort of conflict in consciousness, right? And this was right at the tail end of the Aries lunar cycle. And so we were still in that energy of that Aries solar eclipse. So we were still in a bit of eclipse season energy as far as, where that lunation or took place, right? Or at least the archetype in that cycle. And so whatever came forth from that Aries solar eclipse, and then within the couple days around May 2nd, or while the moon was in Aquarius, there was some sort of reveal, whether it was emotional or something that was energetically experienced. It really opened up some aspect of our consciousness that is really going to have us questioning, or really going to have us in conflict about what we are going to release, or where the clearing still needs to happen, where the lesson has not been learned. So I want to present that. And so over here, looking at Taurus, this Taurus part of our chart is super activated, right? We have Venus, Sun, Uranus, Jupiter. Don't worry about the midheaven because that's specific to this location. And so with this here, Venus is essentially squaring Pluto, right? She had her exact square with Pluto the day before, but that energy is still there. She's still very close. And I feel that Venus is important to consider because she is also in rulership of Taurus, right? She just moved into Taurus. She is getting very close to the sun. She's invisible. And when I consider Venus, again, there's this energy of, Venus at this point is about to experience her death phase. And so there's a lot focused here on endings. And Venus squaring Pluto in this way, it's like Venus is in direct motion. Pluto is in retrograde, or at this point holding its power there. It's almost like they're moving away from each other. So there is this initial energy of separation, right? And so again, as I mentioned with the separation is for learning, is for maturation. And with this Taurus part of the chart, because just in general, the Taurus archetype and the Aquarius archetype are in conflict with one another in a sense of they have a dynamic relationship where they help each other in that way evolve, right? They help each other grow through discomfort. I was going to say through conflict, but it doesn't have to always be that way, but it's discomfort, right? And Taurus, as we know, has really strong anchors, strong roots in whatever it feels grounded and comfortable in. But if you take into consideration that the Taurus parts of our chart have been really going through a lot of unearthing, especially recently with Jupiter and Uranus. We're going to have the sun conjoin Uranus, you know, like soon after this. There is essentially the opening of Earth. And my kitty is laying on my notes here, so I had to move her for a second. Sorry about that. To see what I wrote. So yeah, breaking Earth open. So Earth is literally breaking open, right? And so this has really been happening since May 15th of 2018. So I just want to give you guys a visual. I'll give you a visual too of the other important parts here, but I just wanted to show that to you. And so with all of this energy in Taurus, Taurus has really been going through its liberation, that part of our lives. And in general, the foundations of humanity, the foundations of the planet, this astrology, it's not only specific to, you know, humans per se, it's everything within the nature of this earth realm is experiencing this, because this is Earth, sun, moon, planets, all in this dance together. We're all connected. And so with Uranus being in the sign of Taurus, Uranus being the planet of sudden change, shock to the system, transformation, or more so liberation, sudden energy, whenever Uranus gets hit or has that connection or triggered, that just loosens up or breaks apart that earth that is really dry and just not fertile, needs nourishment. We need to like throw some new soil down, you know, just really put some compost in there. So Uranus is helping to break the earth open, right? And this has been happening since May 15th of 2018. So that's a good point to reflect back on too, because Uranus is going to move into Gemini next year. And so with Venus here, and I love that Venus is in her home, as there's a lot of activity happening, and also Pluto is beginning to come forth and have these engagements and an interaction with the Taurus part, right? Through that process of liberation and evolution, Venus is coming forth, even though she's about to experience her death when she has a conjunction, and it's going to be actually in Gemini, but she's very close to the sun. So she's more so working on an energetic, etheric space, right? She's working kind of behind the scenes, but she's harmonizing and she's healing this part of our lives, right? And what we're learning here, what is going through its own personal evolution or liberation, is this, our sense of worthiness, our sense of sensuality, our connection to nature and the physical world and earth in general, our connection to our resources, really understanding that everything is in abundance. We are not in lack. Scarcity is an illusion. And also that we're also healing our ability to be vulnerable and understand that we are safe, we are divinely protected. So there's this experience of personal security that is being that we're really healing and bringing back into balance, right? So again, there's this focus on alignment. So that is essentially how our Pluto retrograde cycle is beginning. Now we're going to go to the peak of this retrograde cycle, which is the moment in which Pluto retrograde is in opposition to the sun. So I'll share that chart with you here again and share my screen a lot faster now. Okay, so here we are. This is the chart of Pluto opposite sun. It's happening July 23rd, 2024. Pluto is at 0 degrees up here of Aquarius, and the sun is at 0 degrees of Leo. And once again, who's with Pluto? The moon, 25 degrees of Aquarius. This time around, the moon is in her disseminating phase. She's still waning. She just had a full moon experience at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So at that point, the sun was in Cancer. And so there's just been some major reveal, some illumination coming forth with the moon. And she, as Pluto has this opposition to the sun being divine intelligence, there is another reveal, which makes sense because this is the peak of Pluto retrograde. This is the halfway point. So this is when, you know, what we've been looking for, what we've been asking for is revealed to us. The clarity, the understanding, the lesson clicks possibly, or we feel the clearing, or we know what to clear. We know what lines need to be flushed through and cleansed and, you know, purified. And so I wanted to look back at the full moon, and really what came forth is what really was really profound is that, oh, the moon was in the full moon happened at 29 degrees of Capricorn, which is where Pluto will station retrograde, or sorry, station direct, where Pluto will end its retrograde cycle. And so with that said, that full moon is giving us a bit of foresight for what's to come with the end of Pluto retrograde cycle, right? So this is really the point in which, as Pluto will retrograde or move back into Capricorn, this is the last bits of karmic healing is being revealed. The soul contracts are being revealed that need to be cleared. And what I really thought was fascinating was the moon here is pretty much exactly squaring Uranus. So again, that sudden change, shock to the system, liberation, you know, an aha moment. And again, I already talked about what Taurus corresponds to in Uranus and Taurus. And, you know, this is specific to not only the collective, but our individual selves, right? So look at your birth chart to get a deeper understanding of this, right? And so this particular interaction is going to bring some sort of conflict within consciousness. So I have a feeling, especially that this is a waning moon, there will be a reveal that is going to invite you and give you the opportunity to release some perspective, some aspect of consciousness. Okay. And then finally, just to emphasize that reveal, we have the moon in opposition also almost directly to Mercury, and Mercury is about to go retrograde. I think a few days after this, or maybe a week after this, right? We have Venus here. So Venus is in the mix again. So there's information from the subconscious, there's healing of the ego coming forth. And with the sun in Leo, very strong, right? So what I'm getting with this, I'm getting the visual of the strength card in tarot, that inner strength, the confidence, the power, the grace. I always, when I think about the strength card, I see the priestess just caressing or holding the mouth of the lion, and she's got the infinity symbol above her head. And so there's just this connection to eternal life, to, you know, divine intelligence, to, you know, just many possibilities through the nature of the grace and the power and the confidence and the inner strength to just hold something that's can be so ferocious, holding that with grace. And, you know, so it's personal empowerment, right? Within the ability to begin to express yourself and live in your truth. So that's the peak of Pluto retrograde. So now we're going to go to the moment in which Pluto ends its retrograde cycle, which is its station direct. So I'm going to pull up the chart for that. Let's see. Pluto turns direct. Okay. Let's see. All right. So here we are. Pluto turns direct October 11th, 2024. Pluto is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. It's alone. The moon is here in Aquarius. So the moon is still feeling that Aquarius energy. So the moon's presence is relevant. And I have a feeling that, you know, Pluto Pluto's going to will move into Capricorn on September 1st. So between September 1st and October 11th, Pluto is going to be at the place essentially where it's ending its retrograde cycle. So again, there is that holding of the power. And so once the moon makes that conjunction, which is actually the same day, I have it noted here, the same day that Pluto stations direct, ending its retrograde cycle, it will shortly before that conjoin the moon. So the moon and Pluto retrograde will align. So that's the same day. That's powerful aha moments. Also, that same period, we have, this essentially is a week after the solar eclipse in Libra, right? So we're kind of in the midst of eclipse season, right? Even though the previous eclipse, we're beginning the eclipse season with the full moon, and then the next eclipse is, in this case, a solar eclipse, a lunar solar eclipse in Libra. It's like, that's the last eclipse, but that's the beginning of Libra lunar cycle. So that eclipse season is going to last for Libra lunar cycle, or Libra. Wow. I'm almost done here. All right. So that's important. I just want to show you, let's just look at what's in opposition. We have Mars here. That's going to be pretty important because I think a week or so after this, Mars is going to make an opposition to Pluto. That opposition is going to really, that's more specific, I feel, to Mars's retrograde cycle in Leo. So I don't really want to go into that, but that's there nonetheless. So this is really starting to bring in passion and desires. And now that, we've had these reveals, we've been going through this healing and clearing of the energy of the cords and really learning the lessons. Now, how do we act on that? How do we really embrace our divine fire without it being destructive, without it being chaotic, right? How do we, express our creative power with confidence, with, being grounded in that? So that's going to be really that energy of Mars, that connection of Mars and Pluto. So we have the nodes here, but they are not, I don't even want to pay attention to that, but because they're not an orb. But we have Mercury here. So Mercury in Libra, this is also going to give us some more insight, right? As it's at 27 degrees. And shortly after this, it will make a square to Pluto, which Libra is also pertaining to alignment and balance and harmony and fairness, and also divine law in a sense. And so there's a lot here. There's a lot to process. And what I feel is that this is really interesting because as we move forward, the lunar nodes will then move to Pisces and Virgo, and there's going to be a focus on the South Node, right, in Virgo, that experience of being of service, of healing, and just that, even that connection to Earth, right, and connecting with the resourcefulness of nature, the healing elements of nature, and bringing that to the collective in whatever way, is essential, or whatever way, you are uniquely expressing that. And then the North Node is in Pisces, or will be in Pisces, right, as we progress forward. And that is that coming back to, with the North Node, coming back into union with that divine energy, coming back to the nature of compassion and grace, and really understanding that we're all one and that we can all coexist together, and we are lighter. At the end of this, we are really throwing off karma and really embodying the light beings that we are. And I feel that is this Pluto retrograde, right? The heaviness, the restrictions, the resistance that Capricorn can bring forth from like the tradition, from the rules, from the laws of the land and laws of man, and No, we are progressing. We're opening up those containers, those boxes, and we're burning that shit, right? And we are creating intentional communities. So that is what I'm seeing here. I hope that you enjoy this. If you enjoy this, please, of course, like the video. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you know someone that would enjoy this video, please share it with them. Also subscribe to the channel, because my readings, my perspective, my cosmic climates, and all the things are just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's going to be just, it's going to be so, so good. So please ride with me, transform with me. We're in this together. As I said, I'm an Aquarius sun, so I'm ready to fly my freak flag. I'm ready to create this new earth and to grow with y'all. And if you are curious about the nature of your own birth chart, maybe specifically to Pluto retrograde or just what's coming up for you at this time, I am available for readings. I do remote astrology readings. If you're in the central New York area, upstate New York, around Syracuse, we can do an in-person reading. And nonetheless, I'm here to be a support, to be of service to you. So there are many ways that you can get in contact with me. There are many ways that you can connect with me in the sense of connecting with your own astrological energy. And you can do that via my website, uraniauniverse.com. So thank you so much for watching. And I am sending you all the love, best wishes for this Pluto retrograde experience. And I will talk to you soon.